Hi, welcome back to the basement. I'm Steve Lewis. Today we're going to talk about the Beach Boys on Bootleg Record Part 2. In the last episode, we got up to around 1980 with the Beach Boy Collector Series, which released a few things and folded. But it was a promising start. Things were beginning to get a little more interesting. In 1983, I was at a record convention in the Detroit area and came across this, and I certainly recognized the cover as being the Beach Boys' unreleased Smile album, front and back. You can see they've been careful not to put the name Beach Boys on it, but I recognized what it was all the same. This stuff, these Smile recordings were very mysterious at the time. They'd been described in books very accurately, as it turned out. But there were rumors that Brian Wilson had had all the tapes destroyed. There were rumors that he had had the fire tape destroyed, all kinds of things. But nobody had ever heard this stuff outside of a very select few people. Suddenly this appeared, and it is a lot of the Smile outtakes that we've come to know since they were officially released in 2011, I think. But this was the first time we were hearing it. It was very exciting at the time. Some of the things on here are not actually Smile era. Can't Wait Too Long is a little later. George Fell Into His French Horn, I think, is a little earlier. Could be wrong about that. This track, Holidays, which I really liked, turns out to be a Miles Davis recording from his album Porgy and Bess, which I was disappointed in that it's not Beach Boys, but it also led me to an appreciation of Miles Davis. I found Miles Davis through this misrepresented track on this Beach Boy Smile boot. A little while later, we got a double album version. Some of the same stuff, some additional stuff. It was very cool to have. Now, of course, redundant because the box set came out containing all that stuff in much better quality and much better detail. Again, now it's redundant, but they also did bootleg the inner booklet that was produced to go in the unreleased Smile album. I'll show you some of it, but most of you who are really into this stuff have seen it because it came in the box set officially released in 2011. I think I got my date right on that. Sorry if I don't. So summer 1984, I'm in Greenwich Village, going through record shops, and find this, Landlocked, which was the working title for what became the Surf's Up album. And these tracks are all from that era, early 70s. Again, they are studio recordings, Loop-de-Loop, Susie Cincinnati, San Miguel, again, Help Is On The Way, alternate version of Take a Load Off Your Feet, alternate version of Big Sur, the Dennis and Rumbo single again. This was really cool stuff to have at the time. It was almost a listenable album. It was very, very nice to have. So a little bit of time goes by. I'm at a 1980, late 85, early 86, at a record convention in Long Beach, California. Came across two more interesting releases. Some of this stuff was starting to get good. The bootleggers were stepping it up a notch. This, Adult Child, again, they're using a title that Brian had proposed for an album that would have come out around 1977, either along with Beach Boys Love You or as an alternative to Beach Boys Love You. And it does have tracks from that era. This punning back cover with Brian's back. It shows tracks, outtakes, mostly rock and roll oldies that were recorded during the 15 Big Ones sessions, but also things that were recorded in 1977, like Still I Dream of It. Some of some really good stuff on here that we had never up to this point been able to hear. Also, at that same convention, the same time, got California Feeling, which was a alternate title for the MIU album. And these are some tracks from around that era, late 70s. Not as high quality material, but still good, listenable tracks. Things, as I say, were kind of kicking up a notch at that point. Following that, when we got into the early 90s, Capitol Records began releasing the Beach Boys original albums as twofers. You'd get 2 albums on 1 compact disc, and they began to include bonus tracks of unreleased recordings. So bootlegs were beginning to become a little redundant as the record label began to release this stuff in much better quality and with liner notes so you knew what you were listening to. That was really the way to have it. So bootlegs kind of began to lose their cachet, and these now are just sort of historical relics. There was another series, though, in the late 90s, around 1997, I think it started. It came out of Luxembourg, I believe, on CD. It was called the Unsurpassed Masters. There were several Unsurpassed Masters sets for different artists. This was on a label called Sea of Tunes. I never picked any of those up. Now, I understand that the sound quality, I've heard some, the sound quality is excellent. What they are mainly is Capitol era studio outtakes, but they're sessions. So you get things like Surfer's Rule takes 5 through 28 or something. And there's a limit to even what I want to hear as far as take after take after take. And also they were very expensive, and there were a lot of them. And my completist mentality would have forced me to buy all 30 volumes if I had bought one. And I would have been out a lot of money to hear basically redundant take 1, take 2, take 3 of a lot of things like Pom Pom Playgirl and Surfer's Rule and things like that. There's some interesting things in there. And again, the sound quality is really good. I mean, if you just go off sound quality, they're like top of the line. But I just couldn't see shelling out to hear these things over and over again. It was kind of illustrative of how frustrating it must have been for the Beach Boys themselves to have Brian doing take after take, where Mike Love said, the difference between these takes is something only a dog can hear. That is brought home if you listen to the Unsurpassed Masters series. But still, interesting stuff. There's some real gems in there. But most of this stuff now has been released officially. The Capitol, we'll talk about re-releases or things that were released after the fact in more detail. Capitol has really done a terrific job of releasing looks like everything in the vault, because from what they're releasing now, I feel like they must have scraped the bottom of the barrel pretty hard. The Warner years, 1970 onward, I know there's still quite a bit of stuff there that hasn't come out. Some has on box sets and things, some of the very best stuff. I know there's still more around, probably not of the highest quality, though. I know there's still some things out there. The later years, I don't know what's out there. I don't know how interesting it is to anybody. I doubt there's anything of great quality, because the stuff they were putting out was not of all that great a quality. So that's it for bootlegs. This has not been comprehensive. I know there are a lot that I left out, particularly when we got into the 90s and 2000s, when people could burn their own discs. Then all of a sudden there were all kinds of permutations of Beach Boy boots out there. If I've left out anything really key, or I don't know about anything that's really key, please let me know, because I always want to learn more about these things. If you enjoyed this, please hit like, please subscribe. We got a lot more to talk about, and that wraps up the history of Beach Boy bootlegs as far as I'm concerned. Thank you. Bye.